I'm Cassandra Hayes, she said, her voice slicing through the silence like a blade. I built this company from the ground up, and I've just spent the last 10 hours watching you tear it down with arrogance and disrespect. The room froze, and in that moment, every smirk disappeared as the truth landed harder than any luxury car ever could. It was a gray, humid Monday morning in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, the kind of morning where the sky sat low and heavy, and the air felt like it hadn't decided whether to rain or simply weigh you down. Cassandra Hayes sat in the driver's seat of a beat-up silver sedan that looked like it had long since seen better days. She tapped the steering wheel with quiet, steady fingers, staring through the windshield at the gleaming glass front of her own empire, Hayes Automotive Group, at least, one of its flagship showrooms. This one had been a crown jewel once. The kind of place that closed seven-figure deals on German imports and American muscle cars without breaking a sweat. She had poured her soul into it, years of sacrifice, 16-hour days, missed birthdays, and relentless grit. And now, something in its foundation had started to rot. The complaints had come in slowly at first, a customer who felt ignored, another who said the staff seemed uninterested in helping anyone who didn't walk in wearing a Rolex. Cassandra had trusted her managers to handle it. She believed in empowering her people. But then the patterns emerged. Emails. Online reviews. Even a handwritten letter from a longtime client who said, "I didn't leave with a car, Cassandra. I left with the feeling that I didn't belong." So today, she wasn't the CEO. Not on paper. Not in appearance. She had on a faded navy hoodie, thrift store jeans, and scuffed sneakers that used to be white. Her hair, thick and graying at the temples, was pulled into a low bun beneath a baseball cap. No makeup. No earrings. No trace of the woman who usually stepped out of a Mercedes in a power suit with her name engraved on the building. Today, she was nobody. Just another trainee. Another invisible woman looking for a job. She grabbed a worn canvas tote bag, took a breath, and stepped out of the car. The pavement was damp underfoot, and the scent of morning rain mixed with engine oil hung in the air. Cassandra crossed the street, pushed open the glass door, and stepped into her own creation. The showroom still had that new car smell, leather, polish, a touch of ozone. Sleek floors reflected the rows of meticulously detailed vehicles, Escalades, Jaguars, BMWs with glossy black hoods and chrome trim. The lighting was perfect. The sound system played soft jazz, and everything looked pristine. Except the people. Before she could get past the welcome mat, a man in a tailored navy suit looked up from his desk and did a double take. His eyes flicked over her from head to toe. He didn't smile. "Can I help you?" he asked, already sounding like he wished she would leave. "Yeah," Cassandra said, forcing a polite smile. "I'm here for my first day. HR sent me over for onboarding." The man, his name tag read Chad Riggins, senior sales executive, sighed, audibly. "Right," he muttered. "Figures." Then he turned and called over his shoulder, "Alan. Another one for you." A moment later, a man in his mid-50s with a receding hairline and a coffee stain on his shirt sleeve appeared from behind a glass-walled office. Alan Boyd looked at her like someone had just delivered him a pile of unsorted paperwork. "Great," he said. "You can follow me." Cassandra followed him past rows of cars that had once made her heart swell with pride. Now, all she could feel was the cold undercurrent of dismissal in the air. Alan didn't ask her name. He didn't shake her hand. He walked like she wasn't there, stopping only to open a filing cabinet and slam a thick training binder down on a corner desk that looked like no one had claimed it in months. "Read that when you get a chance," he said, barely looking up. "We don't babysit here. You learn by watching. Got it?" Cassandra nodded. "Got it." Alan stared at her for a second longer, then shrugged. "Try not to get in the way. If a customer walks in, let someone else take care of it." And with that, he retreated to his office and pulled the door shut behind him. She sat down slowly, her hands curled around the edge of the desk. She wasn't expecting a warm welcome, but this was different. It wasn't just cold, it was careless. detached. The kind of behavior that didn't just hurt morale, it drove customers away without them ever saying a word. Across the floor, 3 employees gathered near a coffee station. Their voices weren't loud, but they weren't whispering either. And they didn't care that she could hear them. "I give her a week," said a woman with bright pink nails and an iPad clutched to her chest. Her name badge read Trina. "Bet she can't tell the difference between a Tahoe and a Telluride," Chad chimed in, sipping from a metal tumbler. Alan reappeared, chuckling as he joined the group. "HR's scraping the bottom of the barrel now. She walked in here looking like she wandered out of a Goodwill aisle." They all laughed. Cassandra kept her head down, pretending to flip through the binder. Every word felt like static. Her chest burned, but she swallowed it. She didn't come here for pity. She came for proof. And what she saw that day confirmed every fear she tried to ignore. Customers walked in. Some left without so much as a hello. A young black couple stood near a luxury SUV for nearly 10 minutes before anyone acknowledged them. Meanwhile, Chad rushed to greet a man in a suit who mentioned he worked in oil. Trina spent more time fixing her lipstick in her phone camera than she did speaking to clients. Alan seemed permanently glued to his desk, scrolling through something that definitely wasn't related to training. Cassandra tried to engage. She smiled at a retired couple admiring a Lincoln. The woman smiled back. But before she could even ask if they needed help, Chad appeared like a magician, inserted himself between them, and said, "Don't worry, folks, I'll help you out. She's just in training." The couple looked uncertain. Cassandra stepped back. By the end of the day, her head was pounding. She'd seen enough. This wasn't a case of a few bad apples. This was a culture problem. Still, she held her tongue. She needed more than impressions. She needed clarity. Confirmation. It came just before closing, when she wandered into the break room for a cup of water. The space was cramped and smelled faintly of microwaved fish. A cracked couch slumped in one corner. Coffee cups and half-eaten donuts cluttered the table. Cassandra was reaching for a paper cup when she heard voices approaching. "I'm telling you, I almost laughed in her face," Chad said. "Did you see those busted sneakers? Girl looked like she cleaned out her car to come here. She even had the nerve to try and talk to my client," Trina added. "Please," Alan scoffed. "She's not our kind. Not the Hayes brand. We sell premium. She looks like she should be selling cell phones at a flea market." They all laughed. Cassandra stood frozen, the water cup crushed in her hand. Something inside her shifted. It wasn't rage, it was deeper. A sorrow edged in steel. She thought of her mother, working 2 jobs to keep the lights on. She thought of the nights she slept on the floor of her first dealership because rent and payroll couldn't both be paid. She thought of the long hours, the setbacks, the quiet prayers whispered into her steering wheel before big decisions. And now, these people, these employees, who cashed paychecks with her name on them, had reduced her to a joke. She didn't cry. She didn't storm out. She walked back to her desk, sat down, and waited. She looked around one last time. The glinting chrome. The idle laughter. The hollow luxury. Tomorrow, they'd find out exactly who they were laughing at. The next day came, but Cassandra didn't need it to make her decision. The moment she heard them laughing in that break room, she knew what she had to do. The ache in her chest had cooled overnight into something sharper, resolve. She hadn't slept much. Instead, she'd sat at her dining table with a cup of strong black coffee, flipping through the old employee handbook she had written herself a decade ago, the one that said every person matters. Every customer matters. No exceptions. Somewhere along the way, they'd forgotten that. Or maybe, worse, they'd never believed it to begin with. Either way, this morning would be different. She was going to remind them, on her terms. At 5:30 p.m. sharp, just as the showroom lights began to dim and employees were sliding car keys back into drawers and joking about happy hour, Cassandra stood up from the dusty corner desk that had been her station for the past 10 hours. She smoothed the front of her hoodie, still wrinkled, still ordinary, and walked to the center of the showroom, right between a pearl-white Escalade and a midnight blue Jaguar F-Pace. Conversations trailed off. A few heads turned, expecting her to ask someone for help or directions. No one expected what came next. She pulled off the baseball cap. Then the sunglasses. Then, slowly, she unzipped the hoodie, revealing a black-fitted blouse beneath. Her posture shifted. Shoulders squared. Chin lifted. Eyes steady. In the span of seconds, she was no longer Cassandra the new hire. She was Cassandra Hayes, founder and CEO of the very company that signed every paycheck in this building. "May I have your attention?" she said, voice calm but firm, measured like a woman used to boardrooms, press interviews, and million-dollar negotiations. Every voice died. Trina, mid-giggle, froze with her phone still halfway to her mouth. Chad, reclining against the hood of a car, straightened slowly. Alan, who had just stepped out of his office with his bag slung over his shoulder, stopped cold. You could hear the soft hum of the air vents and the low jazz playing overhead. No one moved. "I know most of you don't recognize me," Cassandra continued. "That's because I didn't come here as your boss. I came as a customer. As a trainee. As someone who wanted to see firsthand what was happening inside this showroom." Her eyes scanned the room, landing on every familiar face with the intensity of a woman who remembered every smirk, every dismissive glance, every cruel comment they thought she didn't hear. "And now I see clearly." Chad's mouth opened as if to say something, but Cassandra didn't give him the chance. She turned to Alan first. "Alan Boyd," she said, her voice still calm, but icy now. "You were hired to lead. To guide. To mentor new staff. What I saw instead was laziness and a total lack of accountability. You set the bar so low, it's a miracle anyone in this building bothers to show up." Alan looked like he'd swallowed a golf ball. His face flushed. His arms dropped to his sides. Then her gaze moved to Chad. "And you," she said. "You judged me before I said a single word. You decided I wasn't worth your time because of how I looked. You cut off customers mid-sentence if they didn't fit your idea of money. I watched you ignore an older couple because their car didn't scream wealth. I watched you interrupt me, twice, because you assumed I couldn't sell. You're not just disrespectful. You're dangerous to this business." Chad's jaw clenched. He stared back at her, but the smugness was gone. Replaced by something else, fear. Cassandra turned toward Trina, who stood frozen near the front desk, still clutching her phone. "Trina," she said, "you might think gossip is harmless. But what you said in that break room said more about this company's culture than any spreadsheet or sales report ever could. We sell dreams, not yard sale specials, was that it?" Her tone didn't rise. It didn't need to. The silence was punishment enough. Cassandra exhaled slowly, letting the moment settle. Then she spoke the words that would change everything. "As of this moment, every one of you is suspended. Effective immediately." Gasps rippled through the group. Someone actually dropped a pen. Trina's hand flew to her chest. Chad took a step forward, half a protest forming on his lips. Cassandra raised a hand. "You'll leave this building today without access to your emails, without your sales roster, without your commission tracker. You'll go home and think long and hard about whether you want to be part of what this company is becoming, not what it's been allowed to become." Alan finally found his voice. "You can't just." She cut him off with a look so fierce it stopped him mid-sentence. "I built this from nothing," she said, eyes locked on his. "Not with investor money. Not with favors. I sold my first car out of a parking lot with no air conditioning and a paper receipt book. I stayed up at night learning the back-end systems myself because I couldn't afford staff. I cleaned the bathrooms between appointments. And now, I walk into my own dealership and see the very values that got us here tossed aside like they mean nothing." She turned to face everyone once more. This place was never about flash. It was about dignity. About listening. About showing people that no matter who they are or what they drive, they're welcome here. That they matter. She paused. Let the weight of that sink in. If you want to come back, she said, you'll come back under new expectations. With a new culture code. One where respect is non-negotiable. One where we don't look at someone's clothes or car keys before deciding how much time they deserve. If you can't do that, don't come back at all. No one moved. No one dared speak. Cassandra nodded, calm again. That's all. She turned and walked toward the exit, her footsteps echoing across the tile. Before reaching the door, she paused beside a showroom display, a framed photo of the original Hayes automotive ribbon cutting. She looked at it for a second, then walked out without another word. Outside, the Baton Rouge air was still thick and warm. The sun had broken through the clouds just enough to throw a soft amber glow on the pavement. Cassandra inhaled deeply, letting the door close behind her. She didn't feel triumphant. She felt resolute. She'd built something she was proud of, and now she was ready to rebuild it better. And inside that showroom, for the first time in a long time, silence was louder than arrogance. And every person who had dismissed that quiet woman in faded jeans was now left staring at the empty space she had stood in, realizing they'd never really seen her at all. The next morning, the parking lot of the Hayes Automotive Showroom sat eerily quiet under a sky still stained with the weight of yesterday's storm. The clouds hadn't moved much overnight, as if they too were holding their breath, waiting to see what would come of the reckoning that had unfolded inside the walls of that gleaming glass building just 16 hours earlier. Inside, the energy was different. Gone were the lazy smirks and casual laughter that had once echoed across the sales floor like wallpaper noise. In their place was a silence that pulsed, not empty, but heavy with uncertainty, with shame, and for some, maybe even a flicker of hope. Half the team hadn't returned. The rest had shown up early, their eyes downcast, their movements stiffer than usual. Trina sat at her desk with her blazer buttoned all the way to the top, nervously flipping through inventory reports. Alan stood near the front window, his phone in his hand but the screen dark, untouched. Chad leaned against the wall, arms folded, his jaw clenched tight. They didn't speak to each other. They didn't need to. The echo of Cassandra's voice from the night before still lived in the corners of the room like a ghost. Every person matters. Every customer matters. No exceptions. At 9:01 a.m., Cassandra Hayes walked through the front door, not in disguise this time, not hidden behind sunglasses or the shell of anonymity. She was herself. Power suit in slate gray. Black leather portfolio under one arm. Heels that clicked with intention. But her presence wasn't loud. It didn't need to be. She walked like the floor remembered who she was, like every tile had her name etched in it beneath the polish. And in a way, it did. Without a word, she moved to the center of the showroom and set her portfolio down on a display stand between two luxury sedans. The employees gathered in a loose half-circle, drawn by something they didn't quite understand yet, but knew they couldn't ignore. Cassandra didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. When she spoke, the words fell with clarity and purpose. I meant what I said yesterday, she began. And I know it might have shocked you. I know some of you went home angry. Some of you embarrassed. Some confused. That's okay. You're allowed to feel that way. Change doesn't come easy, especially when it means holding up a mirror you've avoided for too long. A few eyes dropped to the floor. Trina swallowed. Alan shifted his stance. Cassandra let the pause hang just long enough. But today, she continued, isn't about humiliation. It's about a choice. She reached into her portfolio and pulled out a set of crisp documents, 30 copies, each one clipped and labeled, Hayes Automotive Cultural Commitment Agreement. I wrote these last night, she said. Simple. Clear. 3 principles. No fluff. No corporate jargon. Just the foundation this company was built on. And the only way it's going to move forward. She lifted the first sheet and read aloud. Number 1, we respect every customer. That means we greet them with eye contact, treat them with dignity, and never assume their worth based on what they wear or what they drive. Ever. A murmur rippled through the group, guilt, recognition, maybe even relief. She continued. Number 2, we take pride in our work. That means no cutting corners. No checking out mentally because it's a Tuesday or you're bored. These cars are expensive. Our customers expect excellence. And so should you. She turned the page. Number 3, we stay humble. No ego. No status games. Whether you've been here 1 day or 10 years, whether you close deals or mop floors, everyone contributes. No one wins alone. She paused, then looked up, her gaze sweeping across the room. I built this place on those values, she said. And somewhere along the way, we lost them. That's not just your fault. That's mine too, for not seeing it sooner. The confession landed heavy, but it didn't weaken her. If anything, it made her stronger. Her accountability gave the others room to breathe. I'm not asking for perfection, she said. But I am demanding alignment. If you can live by these values, sign your name. If you can't, I respect that too. But this won't be the place for you anymore. She placed a stack of agreements on a nearby desk and stepped back. No one's watching over your shoulder. No one's forcing your hand. Read it. Think about it. If you sign, you stay. If not, we part ways with respect. Either way, this culture changes today. She didn't wait for reactions. She turned and walked to her office in the back of the showroom, leaving them in silence, with nothing but their own conscience and a pen. For a long moment, no one moved. Then, surprisingly, it was Chad who stepped forward first. He didn't speak. He didn't look around for approval. He just picked up a copy, read it, and signed. His hand trembled slightly. When he set the pen down, he looked up, and for the first time since any of them could remember, there was something different in his face. Not pride. Not defiance. Something closer to humility. Trina followed. Her eyes glistened. She hesitated for a moment, then slowly signed her name. Alan was third. He stood there longer than the others, jaw clenched, heart pounding. But he signed. One by one, they came. Each signature was a kind of reckoning, a silent admission that the way things had been wasn't good enough anymore. By noon, the stack was gone. Cassandra stepped out of her office just as an older woman in a floral dress pushed through the front door. She walked with a cane and moved slowly but with poise. Cassandra watched from a distance as Trina approached the woman, not with forced courtesy or a script, but with genuine warmth. "Good morning, ma'am," she said gently. "Welcome to Hayes. Can I get you a water while we take a look around?" The woman smiled. "That'd be lovely, dear." Trina guided her to a seat. Took her time. Listened as the woman described what she was looking for. Not once did she glance at her phone. Not once did she call for backup. Cassandra stood at the edge of the floor, hands folded in front of her, watching. Alan walked past and gave her a short nod. Cassandra returned it. In the far corner, Chad was standing beside a young man in cargo shorts and a graphic tee, clearly not someone he would have looked twice at before. But now, he was speaking with patience, pointing out features, offering options. No rush. No judgment. It wasn't perfect. But it was a start. Cassandra took a deep breath and let it out slow. Her mother's voice echoed in her mind like a hymn. Con kong kan phi lon tiang de chung min jia tri. Con chi kan king nuoi tao kong dam quang di su hien dien qua con. She didn't need to raise her voice. She just had to show up. And today, she had. Not with outrage, but with truth. Not to punish, but to rebuild. And for the first time in a long time, the sun finally broke through the clouds outside, and inside the showroom, where pride, respect, and quiet transformation had taken root. Cassandra turned, stepped back into her office, and left the floor in their hands. And this time, she knew they would carry it forward. There are moments in life when transformation doesn't require shouting, it just needs one person brave enough to stand in their truth. Cassandra Hayes didn't retaliate with anger when she was disrespected. Instead, she stood firm when she saw the values of her company being eroded by arrogance, prejudice, and apathy. The core message of this story is simple but powerful. Respect should never be a reward, it must be the standard. Whether you're the founder of a company or just a walk-in customer, you deserve to be seen and heard for who you are, not judged by your clothes, your wallet, or the color of your skin. We live in a world where it's become too easy to judge others based on appearance. But just because it's common doesn't mean it's right. You have the power to break that cycle. Be the person in the room who pauses before making assumptions. Be the one who listens first, who offers kindness when it's least expected. Be the one who reminds others that humility and integrity are not weaknesses, they're the foundation of real leadership. And if you are in a position of influence, whether at work, in your family, or in your community, remember this: culture is not shaped by what you say, it's shaped by what you choose to tolerate, and even more so, by what you choose to stand for. Real change begins not by tearing others down, but by creating space for them to rise up with accountability and dignity. To you, the listener, the viewer, the believer in justice, thank you for spending time with U.S. Justice Story. Our mission is to bring light to everyday stories that carry extraordinary lessons, stories of dignity, courage, resilience, and fairness lived out on the streets, in workplaces, and behind closed doors across America. If Cassandra's story spoke to you, please share it with someone who might be feeling unseen, undervalued, or unsure if they have the right to speak up. Let them know, silence doesn't always mean surrender. Sometimes, it's the calm before a truth that shakes the room. We're honored to have you with us. Stay tuned for the next chapter. And remember, justice doesn't always come with a gavel. Sometimes, it walks in wearing old sneakers, ready to change the room with nothing but truth.